أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم وصل عليه الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رحمة للعالمين وعلى آلك وأصحابك يا سيدي يا خاتم النبيين. All praises to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salutations, peace and blessings be upon our master Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We welcome you all to one of the first premieres of our course, the course of Essential Islam, which we've titled the Dars-e-Nizami Feeder Course. Firstly, we apology from our behalf that we have taken your time out on the day of Eid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you immensely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you double the reward for taking time out on Eid day, on the second day of Eid, and coming here and seeking the knowledge of the deen, seeking the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was slightly our fault that we didn't fathom into and plan into that Eid was going to be on the first or the second. But nevertheless, we thought it's only going to be an introduction to the course itself. So we decided to carry on with this day today. And this is why you are here today. The title, Dars-e-Nizami Feeder Course. What is Dars-e-Nizami and what is a feeder course? Dars-e-Nizami is a traditional Islamic studies course which is taught more or less now throughout the whole world, but generally taught in the Indian, Pakistan subcontinent. It's the course that makes the ulama. The scholars that you know, they have been through all of this course. For many years, in the past it had been roughly about 20 years that they would study this course. It was brought down to 15 to 10, and then now for myself I keep it to 8 years. The actual course itself is a lengthy course of 8 years, and in that you study every single aspect of the deen of Islam. Meaning from the basics to everything that the ulama study and everything that the ulama have written. And it goes through each and every single science of them. And roughly within the Dars-e-Nizami course, depending on who you study with, we roughly do around 14 sciences. So roughly within the Dars-e-Nizami course, there are 14 sciences which at the end of 8 years, hopefully a person should be a master of them. So that's the Dars-e-Nizami course. Just a simple outline of it. There is a history behind it. Why is the name Dars-e-Nizami? Where did it come from? Who was the founder of it? What is the syllabus like? But that's a lengthy process. Inshallah ta'ala, when we have time later on, inshallah ta'ala, we will speak on that subject as well. But Dars-e-Nizami course, as I said, in itself is a course that makes ulama. When you have to study. And when I say 8 years, it's actually 8 years full time. It's not 8 years part-time that you go to work in the mornings and come back at 5 o'clock and spend 2 hours in the masjid, and after 8 years you become a scholar of Islam. No, rather it is studied day and night. The amount of time you study in class, double the amount of time you may have to study outside of class. That's the Dars-e-Nizami course. What's a feeder course? A feeder course is just to give you a taster of what the ulama had to go through. And I mentioned this in Jummah and in the Eid prayer as well when I announced this course, that sometimes we don't value what the ulama have been through. As we don't really understand that, are they really ulama? Just because they may work as an imam and they are paid below minimum wage, and we think that maybe they don't know anything about Islam, maybe they can't talk to an intellectual person, or maybe a person who has doctor before his name or something at the end of his name. And we think they may be not intellectual people. But the truth is that many of the ulama kiram, which you may see on a daily basis, are very highly intellectual people who know the deen of Islam and know the Quran in depth. But all is they lead a simple life. And the reason of that is that within the Dars-e-Nizami course, one thing which is vital and which I see that many of our Islamic institutions are making a mistake in, and that is that the deen of Islam's study, the religion of Islam and how it's taught is being all institutionalized. When I say institutionalized, what's happening to it is taking out the aspect of tarbiyah. Meaning that in the madaris, in the madrasa, how we nurture our children and how we nurture a scholar. If you ever study the traditional way, then it is also the teacher's job to nurture you throughout the whole of your course. Not just in terms of what he tells you, that this is fard, this is wajib, this is an obligation, this is not an obligation. Rather, he has to also nurture you that you also implement whatever you have learnt, everything you have studied. But because now we are seeing many organizations coming up and they are institutionalizing the study of Islam. As in is a case of you're starting a book and there's a semester, and before that semester finishes you have to finish such and such chapter, regardless of if you don't understand it or not. That brings me to my next point. My course is not built in that way. This course is going to be built around you, inshallah ta'ala. The more you understand of it, the more we move forward. I know there's a lot of you, but the more you understand it, the more this course will move forward. Meaning it's about you, it's not about me. It's not about me going through a set plan. If we don't stick to that plan, we don't have to stick to that plan. If we need to add an extra lesson, we'll add an extra lesson. So it's about you, how much time you put into it and how much you understand of the deen as well. But along with this, there will be fard ain in it. So what we're doing with this course is there'll be tarbiyah with it as well. We'll be giving you tips, how to implement the deen of Islam in your lives. Certain deadlocks that you may come into your life, we'll answer those questions as well. That's the tarbiyah side of it. But in terms of the knowledge, in terms of learning of Deen al-Islam, the fard ain, this course is a mixture of two things. You're going to get the fard ain as well. Fard ain is every single thing that is necessary upon you to learn. You have fard ain and fard kifaya. Like salah is fard ain. The 5 daily prayers are fard ain, meaning the individual responsibilities upon you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fard kifaya is like namaz janaza. Yes? It's just a community fard. If a couple of people, 3 people or so, fulfill namaz janaza, then it is lifted from the community. The knowledge that you're going to be learning is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed upon you individually. Yeah. For example, we have 2 subjects which are going to cover your fard ain. That's the fiqh and aqidah. Yes? Fiqh, for example, prayer, how to pray, how to do wuzu, yes, fasting, hajj, zakat, things like this you will inshallah ta'ala learn as well. The second thing which comes under your fard is your belief. Yes? So we have to rectify our beliefs, we have to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and we need to know His attributes as well. So that's the second part. These are both of these things are fard ain upon us to learn on a basic level. But what we've done in terms of this feeder course is that we'll give you that extra detail, a taster of how we teach in the Dars-e-Nizami syllabus. Just a taster. We're not going to go too much into it, because if I do go too much into it, it'll only be these 3 brothers left in the first row. Okay? And we've seen that many times. I've had classes of 40, 50 students, and then from those classes we only had 2 students left at the end of the year. The truth is, not for everybody. Not everybody has the capability of becoming a scholar of Islam. They are chosen people by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but make the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us ulama of the deen, and you stick through this course, and then maybe inshallah ta'ala when Essential Islam brings its first Dars Nizami course into light, hopefully at the end of this, when you finish this course, we'll have it set up inshallah ta'ala straight after this course. An 8-year course that will be, but we'll initially advertise it for 3 years. Yes, 3 years, and then see if we can carry on from that. So the point I was making was that this course, even though it is a feeder course, there will be a taste of Dars Nizami in it, as in how we teach in the Dars Nizami syllabus. And there's many examples of that, how we teach, but I'm going to leave it to the classes itself. Yes? But I'm going to mention one thing, and that's regarding our teachers, because we don't teach in the same manner as every other teacher. Our teaching method, our teaching style is slightly different to the teaching method and teaching style, and even down to our syllabus from all other institutions and maybe other teachers. And the reason for that is that myself, we come from a tradition of the Bandialvi, get used to this word, the Bandialvi way of teaching. Yes? Our grand teacher, or my grand teacher, was by the name of Jami al-Ma'qul wal-Manqul al-Sheikh Ata Muhammad Bandialvi. One of the greatest scholars of Pakistan, and every scholar that you can think of, okay, maybe from the last couple of decades, any big scholars' names that you can think of, they are most likely direct students of his or indirect students of his. I mean, across the board, whoever you can think of, they will be more or less his students, either direct his students, they studied under him, or they were his students' students. So we come from his line of teaching, and his line of teaching comes from his teacher, which was Yar Muhammad Bandialvi. That was his teacher, and he was actually the founder of this school. He was the founder of Bandiali, just a place in Pakistan, and then just association towards that, the scholars are now known as the Bandialvi scholars. The silsila of the Bandialvis goes back to one of the greatest imams of Hind, of India, and that is Fazl Haq Khairabadi. I don't know if you know of that name, but he was the first man to wage jihad against the British. Yes, he was the first man to actually raise the flag and say that we will do jihad against the British while the British were occupying India. Fazl Haq Khairabadi. His father was Fazl Imam Khairabadi. You all heard of Khairabad in India. It's a famous town. He lived there, and he was a logician, meaning he was a master in logic. And we Bandialvis, our way of teaching is all through logic. Yes? Everything is put through logic. And he was known as the second father of logic as well. Fazl Haq Khairabadi was known as the second father of logic. So our tradition comes from him. Various other scholars as well, Imam Ahmad Rada Khan and various other scholars, tradition comes from that. But generally, to Fazl Haq Khairabadi, and the way he taught, Fazl Yar Muhammad Bandialvi taught in that way, and then that legacy was taken on by Ata Muhammad Bandialvi. And this is where you get many of the Bandialvi scholars from. You may not have heard of the name, but majority of the ulama, even in the UK, majority of the ulama that you may have seen on TV channels, yes, are either direct students or indirect students of Ata Muhammad Bandialvi. So that's the way we teach. It's always going to be through a logical way. Yes? And the reason we teach it through a logical way, because we want to tickle your brain cells as well. Yeah? One thing that we don't want to do is spoon feed you. Yes? And this is why when everybody asks, are we going to get notes? Are we going to get notes? The first thing was, is a traditional course, you will not be getting notes. Yes? Because that will make you lazy. The Bandialvi way of teaching, and I don't expect you to do this, is for the Dars Nizami course, was that in the early years, for example, when I studied as well, in the early years, we weren't allowed to hold a pencil. Yes? In class. You can hold a pencil though, inshallah. It's just general. This is in the Dars Nizami, you're in a feeder course. Yes? But you have to understand, you have to train yourself. Yeah? My Ustad Mufti Fazil Bandialvi, Hafizahullah, when he taught us, he wouldn't allow us to hold a pen. So everything he would say we had to just memorize it. And the Dars-e-Nizami course is based on your memory as well. Yes? This is why we don't want to give you notes. It's based on your memory. The more you memorize, the more you train your brain to memorize instantly, the better you will be in learning the Quran, in learning the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. You can pick up books and the first thing that they say about a muhaddith, he had a great memory. Did it just come to him? It could be God gifted, but many of them were men who trained themselves in such a way that when they would hear something, full speeches, they could reiterate the whole speech straight after the actual speaker speaking, after he finishes. So you need to train yourselves. So with our ustad, we did it more or less something similar. That what would happen was, in the Madhyalvi way, the teacher would teach, and he would teach for about 20 to 45 minutes, and then he would ask us to sit away, do a study circle, come back, and everything he had said in terms of his, we call it a taqreer, in terms of his speech, in terms of his lesson, we had to recite it back to him word for word, with our books closed. Yes. So meaning we had to train ourselves to do that. In the starting it's very, very hard. How am I going to remember it? But we have a way out for it. And that is what we call takrar. Takrar is probably the greatest thing that you'll ever do. You'll probably learn more from takrar than you will learn from the teacher. And what is that? That is actually making study circles yourself. After the class finishes, you sit away, make a study circle, one person starts. In this subject, we learn this today. And try to train yourselves to go through in the same, everything that the teacher said, in the same order, try to go through it all. And then the second person starts. Then the third person, fourth person, fifth person, depending how much of you there are. And you go through it, by the end of that, all of you should have memorized it. And once you do that, you'll see you become stronger as well. But this is actually done in a Dars-e-Nizami course itself. So I was saying that in the early stages, we weren't allowed to hold a pen. So we weren't allowed to make notes. The reason for that is it makes you weak. You depend upon those notes. What you should do is try to do that takrar, and then after write everything down. Sit back, discuss it. Put yourself in a situation that those brothers or sisters that are sat in front of you, I have to teach them now. I have to tell them, I have to explain to them. Explain to them, once you've explained it, then write it down. And that becomes your diary, that becomes your notes. Yes? So this is why we don't have notes in this course. Okay? You can take notes, I'm not going to stop you from lifting your pens in class. Okay? But the more you remember it, the more you memorize, the more you try to make your brain strive to remember, then the better you will be, inshallah ta'ala. But in the starting, it can be difficult to train yourselves to do that. So if you want to write things down, you can, inshallah ta'ala, write things down. So this explains Dars-e-Nizami and the feeder course. Okay? And in there we'll give you hints of how we really teach in the Dars-e-Nizami course. One hint will be the whole subject itself. Yeah? And that's the Arabic grammar that I've put in. Yes? Because that's in the Dars-e-Nizami course, we start, in this day and age, we start from Arabic grammar, which we call sarf. Okay. In a traditional Dars-e-Nizami course, we always start from Persian. So we learn Persian first, but we'll leave that to another day, inshallah ta'ala. Persian is good to learn as well. It's an easy language. It's nothing really hard. Its grammar is a lot easier than Arabic grammar. And the reason sometimes the teacher in the madrasa is because its grammar is close to Arabic grammar but a lot easier. So what happens, it just becomes an introduction to Arabic grammar. But we're not going to do that here. We'll just throw you in the deep end, inshallah. Okay? It is a science, sarf, if it's taught properly, is a science that is very, very demanding. Yes? Sarf is a science which is very, very demanding. As in, we'll tell you things and you won't know what we're saying. Yeah? So it's a science that you just probably go through blindly. And you won't realize, what does this mean? I'll give you an example. We'll say fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alu, fa'alat, fa'alata, fa'alna, fa'alta, fa'altuma, fa'altum, all the way down. Yes? And we'll tell you what it means, but you think, what's the point of me reciting all of this? Why am I doing this all the time, all the time, all the time? Yes? And there'll be so many words and so many of these patterns that you'll repeat. But what's the point of it? The point of it is that you won't understand it now, but if you ever do a Dars Nizami course, yeah, by the second year you'll understand everything, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah? And this brings me to my next thing that I want to say. And that is that when you go through a Dars Nizami course, you have to have trust in your ustad. Yes? If you don't have trust in your ustad, then it's not going to work. Yes? After the first month, second month, third month, whenever, you'll just leave. If you don't trust him. What's going on? I've been saying fa'ala for 2 months now. Yes? What's going on? Fa'ala turned into fu'ila, fu'ila turned into ma fu'ila. Yes? Then he went to yaf'alu, then he went to fa'ilun. Yes? What have I been saying for so many months? So the point is here is that you have to have that trust. Because this is like a massive jigsaw. Yes? And it's a jigsaw that has like, thousands of pieces, hundreds of thousands of pieces. Yes? And is that Humpty Dumpty? You can't just put it back together in one instant. Yes? So it's something that needs to be done piece by piece. Yes? And sometimes it's hard to explain to you of this is what sarf is, this is what Arabic is, this is what fiqh is, this is what Quran is, this is what hadith is. Yes? Because this so complicated science is that it's sometimes hard. We can give you an introduction to it, but then it'll just give birth to 1,000 more questions. So this is where it comes into that you have trust in the ustad. If you don't have trust in the ustad, then you leave. You have the whispers. What am I doing? Why am I here? I've been coming, this is the third month I've been coming, and we're still repeating the same thing. Why is this? And then what? Just get up and leave. You have to have that trust in the ustad. Why? Because the ustad has been through it. The teachers have been through it. I have Ta'limul Muta'allim, he actually says in this book that the student should not even question the teacher in regards to what book he should study. I mean, it's against the etiquettes of doing that. Alhamdulillah, I read this book afterwards, but throughout my study life with my teacher, and I'm still studying with him, never once did I ask him to teach me a certain book. Never once did I ask him how long will it take? Will it take a full year to study it? When will I graduate? When he decided for us to graduate, and when he wanted to give us the sanad, after 10 years, he decided to give us it, then he gave us it. When he feels that you are ready, then you are ready. So this is how you have to look at the deen as well. You know what? It's not a case that after 3 years, 8 years, I'm an alim. Where are you yourself? Have you really studied that in the proper way? Was it just for a certificate? No, we don't want none of that. Which brings me to my next thing, and that's intention. That you study this course as an introduction to Dars Nizami, and when you get into Dars Nizami, the alim course, then you do it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you study it just to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there should be no other purpose behind it. No other purpose behind it. And then what? Have this intention that whatever you study, you pass on to your children, to your family, and if you're in da'wah work, then you pass on to the people. That's the main intention behind it, of spreading the religion of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. So this is what the Dars Nizami feeder course is, and this is what we will be doing inshaAllah ta'ala. In the sarf, in the Arabic grammar, from time to time I'll put in conversational Arabic. Just keep you going. It's a very, very dry subject if you're not interested in it. When I was a kid, 14 years old, I loved this subject. Yes, I just loved it. It was like my cup of tea, basically. Where you just sit down and just keep repeating something. Yes, but the truth is, in this day and age, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's a very, very dry subject. Very, very dry subject, very technical subject, and depending on how much we go into it, the drier it gets. Yes, this is why we say a student should eat his badam before he comes. Yes, almonds, soak them in water in the night, and peel them, the skin off them, and then eat those almonds. They taste better with milk though. Okay, put them in milk and overnight, and then you can eat them. It's tried and tested. Yes, it'll increase your memory, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so you should do things like that as well. This course, like I said, will give you a taste of how it feels to become a scholar. Okay. So the best thing for yourselves to now to what to do is make this intention that I want to become a scholar of Islam. Yes. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Innamal a'malu binniyat." Actions are by the intentions. Yeah? You make that intention, inshallah ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you an alim of the deen. Okay, some muhaddiseen have written on a certain hadith regarding the huffaz that a hafiz, when he's studying the Quran or memorizing the Quran, if he passes away while he's a student, meaning he's just learned half of the Quran, he's got half left, but he passes away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders the angels to come to his grave and make him memorize the rest of the Quran. So that on the day of judgment he is resurrected with the huffaz. The muhaddiseen write that in the same manner this happens for the people who are studying the religion of Islam as well. That meaning that if a person passes away as a student, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will order the angels to come to his grave and teach him all about the deen of Islam. Why? So that on the day of judgment, this person could be resurrected amongst the ulama. Yes? In the department of the ulama. So with that glad tidings from the Prophet ﷺ, if you make that intention, then inshallah ta'ala, regardless whatever happens, on the day of judgment we will be resurrected with the ulama. So make the intention that you want to become an alim for the deen of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. Another hadith comes to mind that the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala wasallam said that for a student, the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spread their wings under his feet. I.e. the muhaddiseen right under this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the angels protects this person. The angels are constantly making dua for this person as well. One of the best forms of protection, we get a lot of cases, this person has jinn, this person has black magic, and so on and so forth. One of the best forms of protection for yourself and your household is just to become a student. Become a student in the deen of Islam, learning the sciences of Islam, then inshallah ta'ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. So this is the blessing of becoming a student as well. This course will take place every Saturday, as you all know, and roughly for about 3 hours. Okay, 3 hours. The reason I've done 3 hours is because of 3 subjects first of all, and also because of the prayer times are also coming back. For example, we are going to pray Asr prayer at 6:30 inshallah ta'ala today. Okay, the azan will take place at 6:15 and the Jamaat will take place at 6:30. Then we have Maghrib, and Maghrib more or less every day comes back about 2-3 minutes. Okay, so I think by next week it'll be from 7:45 maybe. And then we have Isha prayer, which is at the moment stands at 9:45. And then this prayer, every week 15 minutes it comes back. Yes. So for next week it will be at 6:30, but we don't expect to go to that long. We will be taking the prayers into account as well. Okay. So hence we put it to 3 hours. Okay. But those prayer times can be also a break for you as well, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. So we finish about 10 minutes before the Jamaat time, and in those 10 minutes you can inshallah ta'ala have refreshments or whatever you feel like doing in that time. So we plan around the prayer times inshallah ta'ala. After every single session, meaning after the end of every 3 hours, okay, or within the 3 hours, I'll leave a question answer session for you. Remember I said I'm basing it around you. Okay. If brothers or sisters have question on fiqh, okay, we leave about 5-10 minutes for fiqh, 5-10 minutes for maybe 5 minutes for aqidah, and then 5 minutes for just general questions that you want to ask. The reason for that is I want to assess you as well in that in that time as well, inshallah ta'ala, as in how far we've come, how much you understand it. Okay. In terms of the Fard Ain, you're not going to get assessed on that. Yes, the fiqh and the aqidah. I'll assess you on your Arabic grammar. Yes, that'll be me in terms of classwork, just asking you randomized questions and seeing how far you get. I might do it for aqidah as well. Fiqh tends to be slightly more simpler, and the way you ask questions will also let me know how much you understand it as well. Okay, bet you didn't know that. Okay, sometimes the way you ask the question tells the teacher of how much you know of the subject as well. Okay, so there's a way of assessing you as well. In Aqidah, I might just throw out random riddles, yes, and hoping that you can answer them, inshallah ta'ala. And that way, I will assess you. Okay, and just because it's a feeder course, we will go through it in that manner, inshallah ta'ala. For today, inshallah, I'm gonna try to finish before Maghrib. Okay, about 15 minutes before Maghrib, just because it's Eid. Okay, or maybe even after that, maybe after Asr prayer, maybe about half an hour, and then inshallah ta'ala, I'll let you go. Okay. In terms of exams, traditionally in Dars Nizami we don't have exams. Or the way I've been taught it, we never had exams. We'll stop for the azan, inshallah. Who remembers what I was saying? Inshallah. No exams. Okay. The way I studied, there weren't exams. The way the teachers in the Dars Nizami course, the way we assess you is by your reading. Okay. Or one way. For example, how much you know Arabic will be assessed by how that we will, in every time a lesson takes place, there will be a rota of reading a book. It won't be in this course though. Okay, don't worry. That's in the Dars Nizami course. As in, there'll be an Arabic text, okay, and what will happen is one student for that day who will be allocated, he has to read the whole text. So whatever the lesson is, he will read it. For example, if he starts, it'll be a faslun fi mahiyat al-ilmi wal fiqhi wa fadli, yes, and then he read it all the way straight through. Yes. But then he may make mistakes. Yes, there are certain things that you think, okay, if there was a scholar here, he probably wouldn't figure this out. But this student has figured it out. That's the teacher assessing the student then as well. Okay. And believe me, in the Dars Nizami course, in the Bandialvi way, some of the teachers are very strict as well. Meaning if you've read 1 or 2 lines and you've thrown nuclear bombs all over it, yes, meaning you just made a disaster out of it, yes, the teacher will postpone the lesson. Yeah, it happens. Or it'll be, okay, you haven't prepared. Because majority of time should go in preparation for the class. Sometimes you may, for a certain subject, you might only have 20 minutes with the ustad. But your preparation of that lesson may be a whole hour. But if you sit in front of the ustad and you can't read the text, that's the first sign that you haven't looked at it before you came. Yes? So the ustad might say, okay, you haven't looked at it, if you haven't put the effort in, then I won't put the effort in, it'll be postponed till tomorrow. Okay? We won't be doing that. Okay? What my teacher sometimes used to do in regards to the rest of the class was that he would say, okay, take 20 minutes, sit down, go through it. Once you've gone through it, come back and then we'll start the lesson again. Okay? And then the lesson will resume like that. Meaning, in the Dars Nizami course, we can be very, very strict. Because the purpose isn't here just to give you it, yes, and then you write it all down in your notepads, and then you go away from here and not knowing. You know, I used to go college, and then sometimes you be in the lesson and come out, and then somebody asks you what we learned in that lesson, and then not remember a single thing, because your mind's in 1,000 places. You might have taken 1,000 notes in your lecture, yes, but not remember a single thing what the ustad said. Okay? That's what happens sometimes in visual learning. But if you train yourselves in logical learning, memorizing and understanding, yes, you realize that you'll save a lot more within yourselves, and you become a lot more safer in your deen. In terms of yourself, if you disregard everybody else, in terms of yourself, when you're in prayer and we've taught you something, then you know what to do in prayer. You don't have to finish your prayer and then ask yourself or look around and see if there's somebody next to you and confirm with them that is this what am I meant to do. No, you can rectify your salah there and then, as an example. Okay, so we have that type of learning as well. So I was saying that we don't have exams per se in that way, but we will assess you through your reading. Okay. And preparation for your class is also vital. Okay. I am going to tell you what books we're going to be studying. Okay. You can buy them online, and some, if you've got phones and things like this, then there are PDFs of them online as well, which you can get. It's very important you also do your reading before. In a Dars Nizami course, because this is a feeder course, that's why I keep mentioning this Dars Nizami. In a Dars Nizami course, I do not allow my students to read English. Okay? In class, you know, if you're going to keep a translation next to you, they're not going to be entering my classroom. Okay? The reason for that is we need to build your Arabic up. Yeah? So the more you are introduced to Arabic, the better it is. But this is not for this course, this is for the Dars Nizami course. In this course, I do want you to start reading. Yes? Start reading up. So when I tell you to what books we're studying, okay, try to find those books. Yes? And the reason why I haven't provided the books, one of the brothers did ask me to provide the books as well. The reason I haven't done that is because we want you to get used to buying books as well. Okay? And shopping for books. Yes? Making a library and understanding which are important books and which are useless books. Okay? Because it's an art in itself. Making a library and understanding which are books that you need to have. Yes? And which are the books you don't need to have. It's an art in itself. It's a science in itself. Just in terms of fonts. Yes? I don't like these books. Yes? The books that I've got in my hand here, I don't like typed versions of Arabic. For example, it's just my preference. Okay? So generally I don't buy books which are kind of typed. Yes? But I would buy a book which was maybe looks like this. Okay? Which is all handwritten. Okay? I find that easy to read. Why? Because I grew up reading something like that. Okay? And they be more authentic as well, because they're handwritten and it's been checked through. Yeah. Majority of these books which are typed maybe brothers are at a desk and half asleep, yes, in Beirut somewhere, and you're just typing. So they have a lot of mistakes in them as well. Yeah. I'm just giving you a glimpse of, this is a science in itself as well. Yes. The bindings and things like this. There's many things regarding books themselves. Okay, so we want you to introduce yourselves to that as well. Start building your libraries, yes, and have those books. Okay. Start keeping those books. Start reading into those books. So I might give you one book, as a name of it. You go out, you buy it, yes, but it doesn't stop there. That book's going to be a traditional book, yes, and that book might have 1,000 commentaries on it. Try looking for those commentaries, because those commentaries explain that book. So you'll get a better understanding. You might open it and read the English, and the English might be so technical, thinking, what am I reading here? Yes. You might have a commentary of that same book within English as well. You pick it up, you go to the same place as what you are reading, and you'll see that that person has explained it better. Yes. You got an understanding of it. And the reason you're doing that, that's what scholars do as well. That's why we have footnotes. Okay, we call it the hashia. Sometimes there are certain words in the text which are very hard to understand, or certain sentences, certain phrases. Then the hashia, the footnote, explains it. Okay, that's a modern way of having the hashia. This is a traditional way of having the hashia. The actual book is that in that box. Yes, the bigger writing, that's the book, that's the text. The rest of it is the hashia, written around it. Okay. Tradition is written like that. Yes. Then we have, you must have heard of the phrase, read between the lines. Yes. This came from Muslim scholars. Yes. Because you don't find in English read between the lines. Because when you write English, you don't write anything between the lines. Yes. But in Arabic we do. So if you look between the two texts, top line, bottom line, there's writing in between. And that also explains the sentences as well. Okay, so it's something that you should also get yourselves used to as well. Start introducing yourself to them. You may not be able to understand Arabic like that, but it's good to settle your eyes on these things. Yes, the more you familiarize yourselves with them, the better you will become, inshallah ta'ala. These are just tips for you as a student, as a serious student. And inshallah ta'ala, after Asr I'll go into more of that as well. And after Asr as well, inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to go through just a brief introduction to each subject and the books that we will be reading, inshallah. We'll stop there for now. We will continue after Asr, inshallah. One point, can everybody hear me? Okay. We don't need a speaker, do we? Okay. We don't have to spend money, that means. On the boy side, is it okay? Yeah? Inshallah. So, just before I came up, somebody asked a question regarding the word taqrar I mentioned. Repeating the lessons that you have. He said that, does that have to be done straight after class here, or can it be done at home? The best thing is to always do it straight after your class, because everything is fresh. Yes. Make groups between yourselves. Generally, doesn't Nizami classes be small? Most to most, I think I've had about 10 students. That's my class running now. Roughly about 10 students is never going to move that. So it's easy for them just to sit around with each other, and they can do taqrar even though they never do it. Okay, but it's one thing that you have to do. But because you're a big group, you can make your own little circles, inshallah ta'ala. And maybe from week to week, try to change your learning partner so that you get a fresh mind, different way of thinking, different way of understanding things. Okay. The question was, does it have to be done here? You could do it here straight away. Okay. But it's also good to do taqrar at home as well. Yes. So whatever notes you've made after the class or within the class, go through them as well. Try to understand them. Okay. The sisters get it easy because they'll have children, nieces, nephews. Yes. And what you can do is just sit them down and say, this is fard, this is wajib, this is sunnah, and you learn yourselves. Okay. And if you don't find anyone then the wall's good enough. Speak to the wall. There was a great grammarian once who would do takrar so much, meaning he would repeat his sabak and he would open up his teacher's lessons so much, and he would go into so much detail that majority of his friends around him and his fellow students just ran away from him. Said that we can't handle this. This is too much for us. So nobody wanted to do takrar with him. Didn't want to repeat the lesson with him. So he bought a goat. Best companion. He bought a goat. He kept it for a few years and he carried on doing takrar with this goat. The goat would just look him dead in the eyes. Yes, not move left or right, just dead in his eyes. This person was a grammarian, probably one of the greatest grammarians as well in the Islamic world. And after a couple of years, he decided, you know what, I've given too much stress to this goat. Yes, it's Eid al-Adha, I should sacrifice it. So he sacrificed it, and somebody said to him that goat's brain is meant to be really delicious. They opened up the skull of this goat, it had no brain inside it. Okay. So that's how much takrar, just an extreme example for you, that this is how much takrar you have to do. Okay? Of how much you should repeat your sabak. If you have to buy a goat, then people have chickens in the gardens these days. Yes, so it's good to buy a chicken even, yes, and sit with them and start doing takrar with them. Okay? But if you can't, then the wall's good enough. Yes, the walls of your house are good enough, do takrar with them, inshallah ta'ala. After scaring you, there is hope. I scared you with a lot of things, just random things I was mentioning. It wasn't planned or anything, it was just random things I was mentioning. After scaring you, this course that we've made for you is nice and easy for you, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? As in terms of support, if you don't ever understand anything, in class, raise your hands. Okay? But keep in mind, we do need to move on as well. Okay? So we don't just want every week hands raised up, and I don't get a sentence in. If you don't understand anything, at that point just raise your hands, boy side and girl side, just raise your hands and I'll point you out and then you can, inshallah, whatever you want to ask. If you don't understand something, if there's a word I've said which didn't make sense to you, inshallah ta'ala, we're here to help you. If it's something which you need re-explaining in class, if you can do it in class, then we'll do it. If we can't, then we'll support you outside of class as well, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? Either through Essential Islam, or we'll set up something where you can maybe ask direct questions, or if there's something that you didn't understand in terms of the lesson, then you can ask on that and then answer it through that medium. But we'll set up something, inshallah ta'ala, for you in that regards. Was going to give you an overview of each subject. Okay? The actual introduction of each subject we're going to do next week, because we'll follow our plan in that from next week, inshallah ta'ala. But just to give you an overview of it, like I said, one of the first subjects that we'll be doing is Aqidah. Okay? The text, take a note of it, is Bahare Shariat. Okay? Bahare Shariat. Danish never bought his board. You promise you never bought it? Bahare Shariat. Okay? The author is Muhammad Amjad Ali Azmi. So the text is Bahar Shariat. Bahar. Bahar. And just put E. Bahare Shariat. Shariat. Bahar. Then E. Bahare Shariat. Shariat. The author is Muhammad Amjad Ali Azmi. Yes. If you just write Muhammad Amjad Azmi, you'll get the book. It's a very famous book. The author is more or less not our time, but just a generation, or maybe the generation just before that. Yes. He's a student of Imam Ahmad Rida Khan, rahimahullah ta'ala. The actual book is a work of fiqh, and it's probably one of the most widely used works of fiqh in Pakistan and India today. Just because it's in Urdu and it documents everything that you find in the Arabic sources in terms of fiqh. But his first section is what you need, part 1. The only thing you need is part 1. Part 1 of it deals with Aqidah. Part 1 of it deals with Aqidah, beliefs, if you like. And that's the only thing that we're doing from it. We're not going to do the whole book. The whole book, according to the Dawat Islami version of it, is on 6 volumes. Yes? 6 volumes. There's 16 parts to the book itself. Yes? Within those 3 volumes, there's 16 sections to it, which will take us a lifetime to study it. So we're only going to do the first part out of that book. The reason I've chosen this book is it more or less deals with every single issue that you need to know, and in a simple form. Yes? And it takes out all the technical jargon for you. There is, don't get me wrong, there is that technical jargon, but those technical terms are kind of necessary. Without them, we can't move forward. But they'll get explained, and more or less, the majority of them that he mentions explain themselves anyway. Yes. For example, look, if I say wajibul wujud, and you say translate it, it'll be wajib means necessary, wujud means existence. Yes. The entity whose existence is necessary. So they more or less, these are terms that we use, but when we translate them, they explain themselves as well. Yes? So we don't really have to look for a technical definition. So that's one of the reasons why I chose this book as well. Another reason as well is that many of, or not all of them, but some of the controversial issues, it picks up on them as well. There will be separate lessons for some of the controversial issues as well. I.e. in terms of some of the modern day Aqidah issues that we have, we'll have separate lessons just to discuss some of those controversial issues. But foremost, it'll be the basic beliefs that a Muslim is ought to carry and ought to believe in. Okay? This book deals with it completely. And it's a complete book in the sense that majority of your Aqidah books, it tries to combine all of them into one. Yeah? And it goes from section to section to section, covering everything from Tawheed to Risala, to the angels, to the jinn, to heaven, to hell, okay? Down all the way to Wilaya, yes, authority. Okay? Goes through everything that you can think of, he has more or less all of it. So that's the text we'll be doing. You can find this online. There's an English translation of it online as well, Bahari Shariat. Just punch it into Google, and Sheikh Google will bring up, maybe in the first or second one, the English translation of Bahari Shariat. Okay, all you need is part 1 from it. Just part 1. Okay, and we will be going through that inshaAllah ta'ala. For the introduction next week, I might use another book though. Okay, so for the introduction, I'm going to use a different book, and that's Al-Fara'id al-Hisan. Fara'id al-Hisan is a book authored by Sheikh Muhammad al-Yaqubi's father, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Yaqubi. If we finish Bahari Shariat on time, yes, meaning it's 35 weeks, I believe this course is. If we finish it, for example, 20 weeks, yes, we got ample enough time to do Al-Fara'id al-Hisan as well. Okay. We can just edge that in somewhere as well, and we can do that. We have a choice, either Fara'id al-Hisan or Aqidah Tahawiyya. We'll deal with it, which one you want to do, inshaAllah ta'ala. They're more or less similar to each other. The second subject that we're doing is fiqh. Who knows what fiqh is? No one? Yes, jurisprudence. That's a heavier word than the Arabic. Yes. Jurisprudence, as in, easy way to understand it is law. Okay. Just your Islamic law. In regards to yourself, in regards to your conduct, in regards to trade, in regards to marriage, all these things covers all of them. But in this course, we are only covering the ibadat. Everything which counts as worship. So that will include salah, but before that we'll be doing cleanliness. You'll have with salah, then you've got saum, fasting, then you've got zakat, and then hajj. You also have hajj. So more or less the 5 pillars, excluding the shahadatain. So we're doing 4 pillars in one book. The 5th pillar is your Aqidah book. You'll be doing that in that science. The third subject, this fiqh, the book that we'll be following is Nurul Idah. Nurul Idah. I think the English translation is called Light of Explanation? Clarification. Okay. The English translation is called Light of Clarification. What's the author's name, the translator's name? Wasim? I was going to say Wasim Badami. What's his name? Chakswari. He has a very difficult name to pronounce. Yeah, can you just pass it forward, Ashu? I don't think it's Chakswari. Charqawi. Okay. This is the book. Yes. The Light of Clarification. The translation is a good translation. It's not just a translation of Nur Idah. Yes. And I'll tell you why. But this is the book itself. If you can buy this, then buy this as well. It'll be good for you. Okay. Build your library up as well, inshallah ta'ala. We're following this. Okay. So everything that I'll be teaching in terms of fiqh is part of this book. So you don't have to look left and right. It's all in this book. Okay. Obviously, there will be extra explanations that I'll give, okay, which will explain the text to you. But in terms of the base, this is the base that we are using. Okay. This is how it looks like in the traditional way. Okay. If you want to buy a book like that as well, it's very good just to have it for barakah. Okay. It's a very blessed book because it's taught throughout the whole world. Okay. I believe that there is no Dars in Nizami course or no Hanafi course, yes, because we're studying Hanafi fiqh. There is no Hanafi fiqh which does not have this book in there somewhere. Okay, and the truth is, this is taught in the Dars in Nizami course, so you're actually doing more or less the first year of Dars in Nizami as well. Yes, all it is in the first year Dars in Nizami, you won't be using English book, you'll be using Arabic book instead. Yes, that's the only difference. First year, maybe towards the end of the first year, start reading Nurul Idah. Yes, the way I teach him, more or less towards the end of the first year into the second year. This translation, the author of this book is Imam Abu Hassan Shrumbulali. Okay, Imam Abu Hassan Shrumbulali. Some ulama have written that he passed away in the 11th century, Hijri, that is. Okay, but according to some said he was 11 something, some said 10 something, some said that he passed away in 1200 Hijri. Okay, different riwayat on it of when he really passed away. He was from Shrumbulal, okay, which is a village in Egypt. Yes. The reason this man is important is because his works are looked as to be very vital within the Hanafi school. Yes, and this book itself that he authored, Nurul Idah, okay, is one of those books that which really makes or paves the way for a student to become a Hanafi. Okay, he himself wrote a shara of this, and I believe he wrote about 2 or 3 sharas on it. Okay, he wrote this one. Muraq al-Falah is called. This is a translation of Muraq al-Falah. Okay, so this is the actual text that he wrote. On top of this book, he wrote another book called Muraq al-Falah. Muraq al-Falah, Nurul Idah actually was written, and he only wrote up to Kitab al-Sawm, meaning up to fasting, and then he finished the book there. He came, and then what he did was he wrote a explanation of his own book, a commentary of his own book. And then when he wrote his commentary, meaning it was more extensive, he explained it further. He opened it slightly more up. after when he wrote this and he got up to Kitab al-Sawm, he decided to add 2 more chapters, and that was Kitab al-Zakat and Kitab al-Hajj. Yes? This is a translation of that, okay, of Maraqil Falah. But something that this author's done, I've never read this book, but because some of the students, when I taught it a long time ago, had this book. The Kitab al-Hajj, for some reason, does not follow what the author wrote. Okay, so that might make it slightly difficult towards the end of the year when I teach Kitab al-Hajj, because it won't be in line with what's inside the book here. Okay, but that's just a hurdle, we get over it, inshallah ta'ala. But get this book, this is what we're going to be following, inshallah ta'ala. That leaves the third subject. The third subject is sarf. We don't follow a book in sarf. Okay? It's simple as. I'm going to teach you sarf the way I teach it in a Dars Nizami course. Okay? The way I teach it in a Dars Nizami course, the style might be different. Okay? It'll be more relaxed for you. Just to make you understand. We'll use the board more. The Dars Nizami students don't have a board. Okay? They be faqir, don't they? So they don't have boards. So they just have to do it all in their mind. But inshallah, if we have a board, we'll do it that way. The reason I won't do it that way is because I personally teach sarf slightly different, and I don't follow a book. We just do it off memory. We do it that way, inshallah ta'ala. So the author of that is me. Okay, and that book's not for sale. Okay, so you can't buy it anywhere. Not yet. There might be a book coming soon. It's written by the Muhaddis Azam Trust, is it? From Bolton? Yes? Some of the students are the madrasa local to Bradford, they study there. My ustad has taught them as well, and they more or less wrote it, put it down into book form, and that might be released soon, inshallah. If they get that, I'll bring it here, inshallah, and then I'll just give you, and then it makes life easy for you as well, inshallah. Okay. But like I was saying before, that was just a brief introduction. From next week, there'll be an introduction to every single science itself. Meaning you're going to go through terms that we use. For example, Aqidah, terms that we use, an introduction to that. There'll be terms of fiqh. Fiqh is going to be the major one, okay? In terms of what you need to understand, in terms of fiqh. There are a lot of technical things that you need to pick up on for fiqh as well. Sarf, we'll just go with the flow with it, yes? As I say things or as I use the board, you can write it down as well, inshallah. And I'll tell you what to write down as well. With sarf is more about just you sitting back, understanding it, and memorizing it, inshallah. Okay. The last thing I wanted to go through was the adab of a student. Okay. Without adab, you don't get anything. Yes. Adab, etiquettes, manners of a student are greater than the knowledge itself. Okay. Whatever you're learning, whatever you're seeking, it has to be done with adab. Okay. So the main adab is come before the start of the class. That's the first adab. Yes. Be here before the start of the class. So when the teacher comes in, you start your class straight away, and we don't have to worry about time then. Yes, it can all be done in the allotted time. So that's the main first adab, that make sure you're here on time. If you want to excuse yourselves, meaning you have to leave for class, then you can maybe raise your hands, okay, and say you need to leave, or just stand up and get permission from the teacher. I'll just nod maybe, and then you can leave the class. Okay. Since we sit on chairs, I don't normally teach on chairs. We sit on the floor normally in a Dars Nizami course. One of the adabs in a class is, and we see this a lot, is that people tend to stretch their legs out. Okay. It's against the adab of the class. We don't stretch our legs out. Okay. Siri Jamil might remember this. We were in Strasbourg once with Sheikh Muhammad, and a student stretched his legs out. Sheikh Muhammad, of memory, was reciting the whole of Imam Nawawi's 40 hadiths, yes, of his memory. Okay. Just reciting out completely. Sat on the mimbar and he just completely just going straight through it. And someone in the crowd, he was actually sat 2 people away from me, he stretched his legs out in the masjid. Sheikh Muhammad stopped the whole class just to tell him not to stretch his legs out in this way. Because a sign of disrespect is a sign of disrespect to the science, the knowledge as well. And especially if you're learning something like hadith or Quran, is disrespectful for that as well. So just little etiquettes like this that we need to be careful of as well. Always fill up the first rows. Yes. So for example, if you're the only person in class, then you shouldn't be sat at the back. Sit at the front. It's the etiquette of the class. It's the etiquette of a student. When Sayyidina Jibreel came to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, he sat, how we say in tashahhud, in at-tahiyyat, he sat like that, and he placed his hands on his thighs, yes, and his thighs were actually touching the knees of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. That's how we sat in front of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam to ask the Prophet sallallahu 3 questions, showing that he's prepared to study. We mentioned random things in between as well, like intentions. Making sure your intentions are solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't do it for worldly gains, that I'm going to do the Dars in Nizami course and then I'm going to become the biggest imam that tours the UK. Okay? Just go up and down doing speeches. We don't need people like that. Okay? We need teachers. Not more so from the brothers, we need them from the sisters. The truth is, a couple of years ago, when the brother said to me, teach sisters, it was never going to happen. And if the brothers hadn't pushed it, it would have never happened as well. From our tradition, the men don't teach the sisters. We allow the sisters to teach sisters. But because there is a need for sisters to become scholars as well, so this is why we've opened it up a bit. Inshallah ta'ala, you'll be the future female scholars, and then you can take hold of the sister side and leave us to the boys, inshallah. So that's the main thing as well. Don't do it for fame. Don't do it for people to say that you're a scholar, you're the most intellectual person, and such and such. Yes, this is all riya. Riya is showing off, and is a major sin in Islam. So we don't want to do it for those reasons as well. What we want to do it for is spreading the deen of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam and nothing else. Okay. One of the etiquettes of knowledge is to honor knowledge as well. Yes? And honoring knowledge also comes down to how you handle your books. Yes? We have a standard of how we handle books as well. So you don't just come and say, I'm learning something and just sit on the floor like that. Yes? And just get your book and hit it onto the desk. This is what I'm studying today. It's a bad habit. Even our children have it, and they do it with the Quran as well. We teach a lot of children as well, and they'll come in front of you before they're about to read. They'll hit their Quran on the desk. We don't want to do that. The more you honor your books as well, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you. Okay? Bless you with more knowledge, bless you with more patience. The more the shaitan will stay away from you, inshallah. He won't be able to attack you. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you firm in your intention, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make you firm in terms of you having trust upon Him. Okay? So for example, one of the things is, if you got a fiqh book, and then you've got your sarf book, for example. Yes? The fiqh book always goes above the sarf book. If you got Quran in your hand, and you got hadith, then the Quran always goes above the hadith. Yes? So like that we have a structure, so Quran, hadith, fiqh, and then after that you can have any other subject. Yes? But that's the order we carry them in, that's the order we put them up on our shelves. Yes? That's the honor we grant each science. Each science gets its due right. Yes? So even though we might teach logic, yes, but in terms of the Quran and hadith, logic goes towards the lower shelves. It doesn't go where the Quran and hadith is. Yes? If you're studying maths, then you don't buy maths books and algebra books and put it where the Quran and hadith books are. Yes? It goes on a lower shelf from that. So it's not just about shelves, it's about how you come to class as well. So when you're carrying your books and you're putting one upon the other, if you got the Quran, hadith and then fiqh, that's the order you should carry them in. When you place them on your desk, then that's the order they should be piled up upon in as well. Okay? So just the adab that you give towards your books as well. One of the adabs as well is of how you handle your pen as well. Yes? They say the pen is mightier than the sword. Why not respect it? So one of the others, the ulama who were writers, would not place their pen on the floor. Yes. They would always place their pen next to their books. Okay. Some ulama even would not even place their pens inside their books, because the book in terms of the pen was greater, because that's his source of knowledge, isn't it? Yes. And then his pen is for knowledge to come out of him. Yes. So they wouldn't place it onto the text of the book as well. So just little adabs like this, but you might think, what's the point of that? There is a point. The more honor, respect you have, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase you in knowledge. And it's a form of thanking as well. It's a form of thanking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you these blessings. Okay. For example, Imam Abu Hanifa, somebody asked him that, how did you become such a big alim, such a great imam? He said that every time I learned something, I praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I praised him, he granted me more. So I praised him again. So that every time he gave me something, I kept praising him. But this praise comes in many forms. You thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in different forms. Okay? So it comes in terms of etiquettes as well, of how much honor you give to each thing as well. Like that, there's many etiquettes we can carry on all night in terms of talking in regards to the etiquettes of a student. The honor and respect that you have for your teachers. Okay. For example, one of them is, you don't have to do it for me, but for generally other teachers, you stand up. Okay. When your teacher enters the room, then you all stand for your teacher without making a sound. Yes. Your teacher coming in, you don't start talking to each other. You wait for the teacher to sit down, then you all sit down. Okay. These are etiquettes maybe. Remember I told you it's going to be a tarbiyah lesson as well. Throughout the whole course we're going to be giving you these lessons as well, inshaAllah ta'ala. If my ustad didn't teach me, then I wouldn't know it as well. The truth was, when I was young, we should just sit and wait for the ustad to come. Our ustads taught us it. And then we learn the etiquette of the ulama. Yes. That we stand up for our teachers as well, as a sign of respect and honor for them. Okay. And that increases you more in knowledge as well. Imam Muhammad, one of the great Hanafi Imam, the student Imam Abu Hanifa, he also said that how I learnt fiqh for Imam Abu Hanifa was by just standing up for him. Yeah. Standing up for him in honor of him. Yeah. To a time that when he was reciting the Quran as well, and he would see Imam Abu Hanifa, then he would stand up for Imam Abu Hanifa and close the Quran. Yeah. Just in honor of him. There's another example that there was an Imam teaching once in a masjid, and he stood up once, and then he sat down. This is the Imam. This is the teacher. And then the students thought maybe the Imam, the Sheikh, has got a cramp in his leg or something, or he's tired and just loosening himself. He sat back down. After a couple of minutes, he stands up again. And then he sits back down. This happened more or less 5 or 6 times. And then at the end of the class, the students couldn't resist it, because now it's not just stretching the legs, is it? Yeah. They said, they asked the Sheikh that, what was this? You're standing up and down, was something going on? Yes. He said, my Sheikh's son, my teacher's son was playing outside the masjid, outside the door of the masjid, and he was running from one side to the other side. But every time I saw him, I would stand in honor for him, just because he is my teacher's son. Yeah. So imagine, that was his son, imagine how much honor he would have given to his actual teacher. Yes. The truth is that to your teachers, you are indebted to them throughout the whole of your life. Everything you do, if you give your whole wealth away in charity or even to the teacher, it will not equal to the single letter that he taught you of the deen. Yes? And that's the honor of it. And as you know, in our side, in Pakistani side, we say that the teacher holds a greater maqam than your parents. He holds a higher rank than your parents. But he holds a higher rank because he's teaching you the deen in itself. Okay? So this is something that we need to take care of as well. Like this, there are many things that we can discuss in regards to the adab of the student. But inshallah ta'ala, we'll give you pointers from this. That is this work translated is a good introduction to student life within Islam. Okay? It's called Ta'limul Muta'allim. Fasab, do you know the English name to this? Hafiz Umar translated it from Keathley. What is it called? Instructions of the Student, I think it's called. Okay. There is another one, I think it's called Teaching the Student of How to Be a Student. Okay. It has been translated into English. You'll find it. You will definitely find it. Okay. The Arabic is called Ta'limul Muta'allim Tariqat Ta'allum. Teaching a student the way to be a student. You combine that, it has been translated by numerous people as well. Dawat Islami has a translation of this as well in English. But one of the good translations I've seen is from, what's his full name? Sheikh Umar, from Keathley. He teaches at Markaz, I forgot his name. Sheikh Umar from Keathley has translated this as well. You'll find it in Living in Islam as well. I've seen a few copies there. It's a good translation of it. You can read it. You'll even find it online. If you punch it in online, you'll find a free PDF of it as well. Just go through it yourselves. I'm not going to be teaching it, but you can go through it yourselves. It just lets you know of how a student should be within Islam, what the adab is, and so on and so forth. It gives you examples as well of how our great scholars would study as well. Okay. But we'll give you tips from that from time to time, inshallah ta'ala. I'm going to stop here, and if you've got any questions, I'll give about 5 or 10 minutes. We'll start from the boys' side, and then we move to the girls' side, inshallah. Any questions on the boys? No? We'll move on to the girls then. No questions?
Not a question, but the book you mentioned by Hafiz Umar, his name is Umar Khan
Mu'ini. Okay, Umar Khan Mu'ini has translated this book as well. Inshallah, you can buy that, inshallah. No questions?
We've got a slight 20-second delay online, so we're just going to...
Okay. Should we start counting? We have a live stream as well, but that's for people who are not from Bradford. Some brothers did ask about regarding if they miss lessons. There was a brother who said he's going to Pakistan. If you do or you can't attend any lessons, first thing is that you attend every single lesson. Yes? In Dars Nizami, generally, I make it strict upon my students to attend every single lesson. Okay? Myself, many of my introductions, when people introduce me, they introduce me in this way. That I didn't miss a single lesson for 10 years. Yes? Not a single lesson. The only time I had off used to be Ramadan. Yes? And I would not miss a single lesson. That means no holidays in between. Okay? And I expect my students to be like that as well, that you don't miss a single lesson. Yes? The blessing is in that as well. But if you do, the admin Essential Islam, admin Sidi Naveed, you can contact him on Essential Islam. I believe that you can get these videos on demand. Okay, if you miss the lessons, that's if you miss the lessons. Okay, so you can ask Essential Islam through his page or whatever contacts you have with them. And they will give you the video, inshallah ta'ala, to the lesson that you missed. But we make it vital upon you to attend every single lesson of this course, inshallah. Okay. No questions? Okay. So from next week, inshallah, we'll be doing our formal introduction of each subject, and we're going into those lessons. This course is 35 weeks. I expect you to, inshallah ta'ala, it started off with this much people. Inshallah ta'ala, at the end, I want this much people to remain as well, inshallah. Okay? We don't want anybody to run off. This is why I made it so easy for you. If you have any questions, even outside of classes, we're always open for you. Okay? We're always there to help you. I know I scared you a lot in terms of the examples and how strict the Dars Nizami course is. Inshallah, for this course, we're all open. Okay? If you need any help, we're there to help you. We do have a lot of ustads here as well. Okay? There's a lot of Dars Nizami students here as well. If I can't help you, then some of them brothers will help you as well, inshallah ta'ala. You can ask them questions as well. Okay, we'll stop here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow you and give you the tawfiq of going through this course and learning the deen of Islam, learning the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a firm intention for staying from the first lesson to the last lesson of this course. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you all and make you capable, all of you capable to become ulama of the deen, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you ulama, make your children ulama, make your grandchildren ulama, inshallah. Till the day of judgment, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow every single person to be born in your families to be part of the awliya ikram, to be part of the ulama ikram, and to be of those people who raise the slogan of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Inshallah, we stop here.